Welcome back to the Kicks and Picks podcast. Coach Steve and Scotty here with you. Nick will be on hopefully any second now. He says he's coming on. We've been holding it up for him a little bit, but we're going to have the whole crew together for the first time in quite some time. And we're going to do things a little differently tonight, Scotty. We already talked about the futures the last couple of weeks. We talked about transfers last week together, and I know you did with Nick and Martino as well. So not going to beat a dead horse. We're going to do a little this or that, 5 questions to kind of gear up for the season. So, Scotty, how you doing tonight? And then I guess we'll jump into it, and hopefully Nick will be on soon enough.
Yeah, good. I mean, we're kind of in the midst of the dog days of summer in terms of European club football. We got a lot of international friendlies partaking or happening in Asia. We just saw Arsenal beat Milan, I think 1-0. Saw Spurs beat, I think, Reading by a couple goals. Liverpool are now out in Hong Kong. So hopefully, as we get on over the next few weeks, we'll get some results that probably don't mean anything that we can read too much. We can read way too much into and react to. And then a couple weeks after that, we'll be gearing up for the first week. So bear with us as we try to get through this. But there is still good information to talk about. So I think we're in for a decent show tonight. And then hopefully we can spark some debates. And if you're watching us, feel free to chime in. We're going to be trying to engage with everybody in this pod. So yeah, let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, let's kick off the first one.
So without further ado, speaking about transfers, obviously this summer has been kind of the transfer of forwards, strikers across both Europe or both Italy and England. But 2 clubs right now that I think are in the midst of all of that are Manchester United and Newcastle United. So let's start off with them. Who do we think is going to finish with more goals in the league this year? Manchester United or Newcastle United? Now, Coach, before you go, I'll give you a little bit of context just so we can kind of level set the playing field here. Obviously, last year, Manchester United struggled horribly with attack. Needing to bring in forward reinforcements is absolutely mandatory. They scored 44 goals all season long. So not even less than 1.5 goals per game, basically. It's pretty sad sum. Newcastle, on the other hand, behind Alexander Isak, 68 goals scored, so quite a bit of an advantage. But United have gone out. They're addressing their weaknesses. They've brought in Matthias Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. Mbeumo, 20 goal scorer in the Premier League last season for Brentford. Cunha, 15 goals. Also a little bit more of a creative player, can kind of play off of Mbeumo pretty well. So bringing in a lot of firepower. Newcastle United, I think right now, really trying to just hold on to Alexander Isak for at least another season, but they've been doing business, bringing in Anthony Alenga from his pretty good season at Forest last year, 6 goals, 11 assists, certainly room to grow. They did miss out on Ugo Adetike, who went to Liverpool, but they are about to land their plan B in Johan Visa, coming out of also Brentford. So Brentford losing a lot here. He was a 19-goal scorer on his own. So yes, Newcastle are coming into this with probably a bit more of an advantage, but I think United have strengthened a little bit better in the attack. So where are you going? Do you think Manchester United have done enough and that their attack will surpass Newcastle's in this upcoming season, or do you think Newcastle, behind, assuming Isak stays, behind probably one of the best 2 or 3 strikers in Europe right now, can they keep that advantage?
Yeah, I think, the guys United are bringing in are certainly going to help. Premier League players that have proven they can score in the Premier League. But when you have a guy like Isak there, I just don't know, if he has his season that we're used to him having in the Premier League, I think it's hard for him, to not do enough to help put them over the top. And when you compare them just directly to United, he's been one of the best forwards in Europe the past couple of seasons. And, as long as he sticks around, they're in every match, right? And they've got a chance to score every match. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think, last year, 23 goals in 34 league matches, provided another 6 assists. So he's also helping set up goals. He's entering those prime years at 25 years old. I don't see him scoring less than 20 if he sticks around and stays healthy. So I know Mbeumo, solid player. Cunha, solid player, but I don't know. And I don't know. I think just the overall team around Isak is better, right? It's better set up right now. They're coming from a better place. Bueno I didn't realize he scored 20 goals himself last year,
Yeah.
20 and 7, solid return. Played every match too. But yeah, I think I still have to tip um, Newcastle
Newcastle.
there. Yeah.
I think my concern with Newcastle right now is there's quite a bit of drop off, right? After Isak, you have Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon, 9, 8, and 6 goals, respectively. Yeah, you're bringing in Alenga, who was a really good creative force, but as we just mentioned, didn't actually score a lot on his own. Only the 6 goals to his name for Forest last season. And Visa, I think, was the second best option out of Brentford, and I think he certainly benefited from playing with Mbeumo more so than he would have played if he was a lone striker up top. And I don't really see him playing with Isak. I think he's a guy there to come in, if Isak is tired or if Isak gets hurt. And I think that's actually a pretty good drop off. Visa, I think, is 29 or will be 29 this season. So I think a lot of this for Newcastle relies on Isak's shoulder. So if he stays healthy and you tell me he's going to start 32 games, then yeah, I agree. I think it's Newcastle. But if he picks up an injury that puts him out of commission for 4-6 weeks, now I think the depth in what United have could be enough to get them over the top. Nick, you just joined, so we might as well just throw you into it. We're doing a little bit of this or that. Our first one, as you can see by our banner. More goals for this upcoming season. Manchester United, who struggled all season long last year. Newcastle United certainly have the advantage, but lack some of the reinforcements that United have brought in Brian Mbeumo and Matthias Cunha. Can't hear you. Uh-oh. I wish I had the Jeopardy music right now. Oh.
No.
All right. We'll get back to Nick. We'll move on to the next one because this one's going to pull in more Serie A. So
try now, Nick. No, still
not. Two clubs that are always active, and I shouldn't say always, have recently been very active in the transfer windows for their respective leagues. Chelsea, of course, spending €500 million every single transfer window since summer of 2023. And then more recently, Como coming in, trying to become one of the new big powers in Italy. I don't know if power is the right word, but trying to become one of the big boys that can at least qualify for Europe and become a potential player in the European competitions. Who do you think is going to have a higher finish in their respective league table this coming season? Como or Chelsea? Coach, I'll kick it over to you, but again, just level setting here. Chelsea, I think, although they've spent a lot, haven't necessarily spent wisely, and they sometimes spend maybe a little wastefully, bringing in players of similar positions or spending a lot on potential projects. Hasn't really paid out for them a whole lot in the past few seasons, although this year there's maybe more room for hope. Como, I think they have a lot of expectations coming into the season where, maybe last year, a little bit less weight on their shoulders. Certainly have a manager that we talked about last week that should be able to navigate a long league schedule. So where do you stand? I mean, obviously Chelsea would, in theory, have the upper hand here, considering where they finished last season. I think they, finished 4th place. Whereas Como are maybe more in development. But for Chelsea, everybody around them is also spending tons and tons. And Como right now, I think maybe are the biggest spenders in Italy. Is that still the case? I think they were last time we spoke, but I don't know if
they are. I mean,
I don't know if anybody surpassed them.
I'm gonna have to say Chelsea. And no knock against Como. I think they're gonna be an improved side. I do think the signings will have an impact. They punched above their weight last year. They're spending money. But to me, Chelsea finishing top 4 last year and seemingly improving. I mean, they had a really good Club World Cup too, right, against some of the best teams in Europe and around the world. I think
does that work against them though? Club World Cup, less rest. We talked about this last week. Is that going to hurt them in the long run?
Early, but the thing is, I don't see Como being much higher, even if they're like firing on all cylinders, probably than 6th or 7th, maybe. And that's like generous, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can hear me now, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's
So
up,
I'm
boys?
gonna have to go Chelsea.
All right, Nick.
Yes.
What says you?
Thank you for bearing with me through technical difficulties. What's up, boys? To answer your first question, the answer is Newcastle. I think I have to see it from United. I don't care who they bring in until I see United can actually do anything under Morum. I have to give it to any other team. So let's see what Newcastle does. I mean, I guess the window still is open for a little bit, but they have to be the pick for me in that one. And kudos, shout out Coach Steve for answering this question, because although Scotty did the right thing by throwing the pop culture question on here, I will not be buying into the Como hype the same way that everybody else is. I think it's a great story. I think they did very well last year, probably met or exceeded people's expectations. I know they exceeded our expectations. The answer here is Chelsea. If Como finishes in the top 6, I would be absolutely shocked. I know that's like the super hipster pick right now. I don't think there's a chance in hell. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm also curious if Como's done for the window. Obviously the highest spenders right now, but they might be one of those teams that just gets their business done early, gives the manager a little extra time to settle the players in, and then everybody else can kind of catch up. I know the Serie A has been a little slow. Some of it's been because their teams, the teams that typically spend, have been at the Club World Cup. But how does that gap close as we get closer to the start of the season?
Who did Chelsea just buy today for another 50 million? What was it?
Was it Xavi Simons was the one? Was he?
He's rumored. I don't know if he's been official.
No, I should have come prepared.
Oh, they're also talking to Hato too, the center back from Ajax.
Man, I could swear they just had somebody.
No, they've been. I think it's just Gittins, Delap. I mean, just Gittins and Delap. One of the Yaos. Anywho, I don't know. I don't think Chelsea's going to improve on their position, right? Like, I think 4 is probably their ceiling this season, unless Arsenal really drop off. Liverpool obviously having a great summer window, so there's hope there that they can kind of keep that momentum rolling. City, I think, will bounce back a bit, although their transfer business has been relatively quiet for City standards. Obviously, they still have Haaland and Rodri coming back from an injury, so that's a huge boost, but you would expect them to be well within the top 3. So I don't see Chelsea doing better than 4. I could also see them doing worse, right? Newcastle probably will drop off a little bit this season. We saw how they struggled with managing Champions League and league duties 2 years ago. I think they'll probably struggle again. They certainly haven't brought in any more depth options for the squad, so don't know that they'll be a huge player, but you still have those teams like the Aston Villas and the Brightons, and who knows, maybe United can get their shit together. Spurs, I'm slightly less. I think Thomas Frank is a great manager. I think he's gonna do well with Spurs. I just don't think it's gonna be his first season. It's gonna be a 17th to 4th place type of run. I think if Thomas Frank gets them into like top 8, they'll be happy. So I think Chelsea probably gets it done, but if Como knock it out of the park and if they keep building, I could see them finishing, 5th maybe, and it could be close.
I don't know. I'm with you, but are United, Aston Villa, Newcastle, every team you mentioned, I'm trying to think of like who you can definitively say, hey, this team is better than Chelsea or is going to potentially finish ahead of Chelsea.
Yeah, and Chelsea's biggest problem, although they spend a ton of money, they haven't really quite found the the right starting 11 with 3 or 4 subs.
They looked good the back half of the year, and like that's with Cole Palmer having a pretty awful season.
Yeah, so I think Maresca's kind of gotten things slightly figured out for them, and at the very least, they have a 12 or 13 man squad that they can compete with, and hopefully everybody else kind of falls into place.
Yeah, it's got to be.
All right, we'll stay in London for this next one, keeping the theme of transfers. 2 other clubs in London, Arsenal and Spurs, have made pretty big signings of their own. Spurs have gone out and signed Mohamed Kudus from West Ham, a really tricky winger, has been known to create goals, can score some bangers from time to time, but maybe not prolific. And then Arsenal have been able to be the club that's landed Zubimendi for two windows running. I think he's been a hot midfielder for the Premier League, trying to poach him out of Sociedad in Spain. He finally has turned down City, he's turned down Liverpool, and he settled on Arsenal. So my question for you guys, of those two players, who is going to have a bigger impact in London? Is it Kudus kind of replacing some of this lost goal scoring ability that Spurs really haven't fully recovered from Kane's departure? Or is it Zubimendi, this, borderline 6, maybe more box-to-box 8 style midfielder that Arsenal can pair with Declan Rice? And could that be the difference maker in getting them into the actual title position at the end of the season? Nick, I'm going to start with you because Coach has been going first the last few times.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. No, man, I just have such a dislike for Zubimendi that I don't know if I can answer this question honestly.
Where does this dislike come from? What has he done to you?
Yeah, he's Spanish, plays for Spain. hate him by default. No, I don't know. And I saw his comments, dude. I had a discussion with one of our boys, Sam, where it was a poor quote, but it was like, oh yeah, I really wanted to come to Arsenal because I want to play under a proper manager. And underneath it was why he didn't join Liverpool last year. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Was Slot not good enough for this dude? Won the fucking league title. So I don't know. It just turned me off. It's fresh in my mind. But Zubimendi is very good. So I can see him making an impact. There's really something to be said about wanting to go somewhere and actually landing where you want to go. But he is a quality player. So I think he does fill a lot of holes. Obviously we know the team that can never really stay healthy in the midfield. He's going to be an asset, to your point, can play multiple positions. So he might be the answer. But on the other hand, how many goals does Richarlison have for Spurs total since he signed?
Yeah, 7.
So I don't know how that isn't really truly the obvious answer. If Kudus comes in and scores 10 goals, that's probably a bigger impact for a team that finished 17th or wherever 16th, whatever it was.
Yeah. He looked good in their friendly against Reading. I think he assisted a goal, and I don't think he scored the other one, but he was running a riot up and down the wing. Had a couple good clips. So promising start in the preseason. That certainly matters.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen Kudus play much, or even Zubimendi. I know more about Zubimendi just because the name's been around more. But I think to Nick's point, if they can get him integrated in that midfield, maybe that helps make the difference. Of course, they've got their striker now, right? Yorkis, or however you pronounce his name.
Yep.
So that is probably the biggest impact for them. Mm-hmm. But when you add in Zubimendi into that midfield, I think they've put together a nice squad now. Does it challenge Liverpool for the title? We'll see. Is it better than City? We'll see. Yeah. Is it better than Chelsea? We'll see, right? Because Chelsea's kind of on that upward trajectory. But I think Spurs is coming off the season they had last year. I think they have a lot of holes to fill, right? And if Son leaves, like the rumors are saying he could possibly leave, then who's providing Kudus with the service, right, that he might need to score those goals? So I'm going to go Zubimendi, I think, just because the impact that he could have along with Yorkis could be enough to get them where they want to get to, right? Which would be a Premier League title. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's the impact he could have. Whereas, what's a successful year for Spurs this year? Is it to qualify for Champions League by finishing 5th? Is it top 6?
Probably
7?
top 7, yeah.
Top 7, yeah. I think
Europe?
Yeah.
So, Scotty, I'll let you answer, and then I will ask you a follow-up question.
Yeah. Nick, I'm going to add another quote to the Zubimendi quote board here. Why he chose Arsenal. He said Arsenal were the only team that truly stood up to Paris Saint-Germain, and they let it slip because of minor details, ignoring the fact that Liverpool went to penalties with PSG.
Right.
So that's fine. I think on paper, I think Zubimendi kind of completes with Yorkes this puzzle for Arsenal. There's no excuse anymore. They have their spine between Saliba and Gabriel, center backs, very strong. Probably maybe the best pairing in the Premier League. You can make an argument that Van Dijk and Konate are probably better, but it's one or the other. Very
more
good,
dynamic,
very close. Then you have a midfield 2 probably sitting in front of them between Declan Rice, who had a good season, and then now Zubimendi replacing Thomas Partey, who played well for Arsenal, despite probably shouldn't have been playing for personal reasons. Odegaard in front of them should be fully healthy and ready to go. And then on the flanks, you've got Martinelli and Saka with Gyökeres playing as a true attacker, a true forward, a true striker, instead of, Mikel Merino or some other, or Kai Havertz. That is top to bottom as good as Arsenal can hope to have as their starting 11. I know the wing backs are probably okay. Like it's, maybe you play Miles Lewis Skelly or Timber, but either way, that's as strong as you're going to get for a core. On the other hand, Spurs have a lot more room for improvement, right? Like there is a lot more impact. If Kudus can come in and maybe score 15, create another 10, what kind of impact is that going to have on Spurs and the players that are, playing around Kudus? The only thing that I think if we're talking about this season, that's kind of a negative for Kudus. We got AFCON, boys. We say that at least once
always,
a pod.
Always.
He's a Ghanaian international, so he'll probably be gone for about a month or so. So that leads me back towards it's probably going to be Zubimendi when it's all said and done. The other thing that Zubimendi does is he kind of gives them protection for if Declan Rice picks up an injury, right? Like if he was healthy all season last season, but if he goes down again a month or two, Arsenal's midfield is very, very thin. There's not really anybody that's going to like hold it down box to box. And I think that becomes a big weakness of theirs. So yeah, Zubimendi can kind of provide them a little bit of protection there as well.
Yeah, I think even with AFCON, 10 goal involvements would be very good. Like if you're telling me he could potentially miss a month and still rock out with, I don't know, 6-7 goals, 4 or 5 assists, I think it's still a pretty big impact for a team that's going to need to find something. So you answered my question. I didn't even ask it, but you kind of answered it. Like, is this the year, not title or bust, but the year that, hey, Arsenal gets no more slack, right? If they don't win the title this year, everybody talked about how great their wingers were, how great their defense is, how great this is, Arteta, that, whatever. Yeah. Now that you've gotten the 2 players you think you needed to fill the 1.5 holes that you maybe had, I don't ever want to hear an Arsenal fan again if they don't win the title. And I'm not saying it's easy to win the title.
No,
that's kind of where I'm at. Do we agree?
Yeah, I'll clean it up a little bit. I don't think they had a whole lot of slack this season, and I think they got cooked pretty good when they started complaining about injuries and Liverpool's schedule being easier at certain point. Like everybody plays everybody twice, right? And so I don't think they had slack this year. I don't think people were saying, well, I think they're feeling it now. I think this is the season with everything they've got where if they don't perform, if they're still finishing behind City and Liverpool, that Arteta's job may actually be, reconsidered.
I agree.
Because you've given the manager everything he could have asked for at this point. I know he's been asking for a striker for, a season and a half, but you've given him one now. There's really no excuses. I don't care if it's injuries. If it's injuries again for the 3rd season in a row, guess what? Maybe it's your training tactics. Like
right.
Everybody's got to play the same number of games to some extent. You got to manage it. Now it's put up or shut up time for Arteta. And if Arteta's finishing, 3rd, or if, heaven forbid, if he's not even in the top 4, right? Like what happens if Arsenal comes into this and Chelsea has a banger season, Newcastle somehow manages to do well in the league despite having to battle on 2 fronts. If United comes back and, Amorim is able to actually like imprint his vision on a squad of players that he wants. If Arsenal are struggling to fit into that top 4 with all of this going on, like what happens with Arteta? Is he really that guy, or is he just kind of hit a ceiling and you need somebody else to come in and take you to that next step?
I completely agree.
All right. Let's pivot over to Serie A now. Similar question, different direction, mostly because Serie A, as we talked about last week, Coach, haven't been super active in the transfer window. The biggest actions have been sales so far. So my question for you guys, who's going to be a bigger loss for their club right now? Retegui off to Saudi Arabia, or Reinders off to Manchester City? Who can deal with the loss of their key player the best? Is it Atalanta or is it Milan? Coach, I'm going to kick it off to you to start this one.
I mean, it's a tough one, and there's a couple of reasons why, right? Because if Gasperini was still at Atalanta, I'd say easily Reinders, because Gasperini could turn out strikers and goals. He could find goals from different places. Atalanta's done that for a decade now. He's moved on to Roma. So I think if Retegui stayed at Atalanta, I don't think he would have had as big of an impact with the way Juric plays football. To be quite honest, I mean, I think that is the biggest downgrade in Serie A this year is going
Mhm.
from Gasperini to Juric, which is why when I saw the Chiesa rumors to Atalanta, I was like, why would he want to go there and play like left wing back? Because that's what he's gonna be playing there, right?
So you
I
could
guess he
start
got used.
33 games.
I guess he got used to it under Allegri. I don't know. But to stick with the question, I think the bigger loss, considering what the expectations probably will be for the club this year, would be Reinders. I think just because he had a really big impact for a team that
Mhm.
wasn't very good last year, that really disappointed. I mean, they have the third shortest odds in Serie A. We talked about that last week, which I was kind of like surprised about. Right? I think they were the third shortest odds,
Yep.
or fourth shortest odds, maybe after Juve as well. To me, like coming off the season they had, losing Reinders, I was like, wow, that's like I know they brought in Ricci. He's a nice young player, but Reinders was really good for them. And you know, I understand why Retegui went. He got paid a lot of money. But I don't know where that leaves him with the Italian. Like he's going to be called up for the national team because they need him, right? But I don't know how that helps him or the Italian national team move to Saudi Arabia at this point or wherever he
I don't
went.
know, man. I make the joke all the time. Like when you're talking about that sum of money for a guy who's not even world class in his position,
Yeah.
he's very good at any team. Any team would be happy to have him. But when you're talking about 25 million a season in your pocket,
Oh yeah.
I don't really
I
judge
understand why
anybody
he
that
went.
goes
Yeah.
to make that move. No, Steve, you had a good answer, man. It's a very nuanced answer. On the one hand, you don't replace 25 goals easily, right? Especially in Italy. It's just not a thing that happens. But I don't know that I would have had expectations for Atalanta regardless. Like you said,
Yeah.
lost their coach. You got Scamacca, who's maybe coming back off of his third knee injury. So
Yeah.
will he come back? Will he not? Do they have anybody lined up in the academy? Are they going to make a purchase? Maybe get somebody on loan? I don't really know what their game plan is. I think they're going to probably have the biggest drop off of any team from last year to this year. Gun to my head. So it is a really big loss because I think at worst you would have expected him to contribute 15 goals, right? Like just provided the full healthy season. Would have been his third full year in Italy, coming off of obviously a very good year. They're probably losing Lookman as well, right? There's rumors to him to Inter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he's a big reason why Retegui gets the space he needs to score those goals, right?
So that, I mean, it's irreplaceable, but in the context of what's important for next year and who potentially could make some noise and have some expectations, Reinders could be the answer. And he's looked pretty good from what I saw for City, right, in the preseason games and the Club World Cup and stuff like that. So I think Milan did great business. I mean, they profited a lot on a year's worth of football out of Reinders, so good for them. But Musa's out. He's out. They got a lot of work to do in that midfield to replace him. So that to me is probably the answer, just because I don't think Atalanta, if they make top 7, I think that's a great year for them.
Yeah.
And then, like, you weren't on last week, Dick. I just want to bring this up because I was looking at the futures as we were talking about this. Like, Atalanta's got the 6th shortest odds at plus 1,800. Then it drops to Lazio plus 3,000, Fiorentina plus 6,500, Bologna plus 8,000. I know we don't get, like,
Bologna is the best. Bologna would be the best bet of that entire group, in my opinion.
Like, I wish there was a market here in the U.S. bet to finish top 6 like we could do with the Premier League, right? Like a European spot. Because, to me, I would fade Atalanta at plus 1,800 and take Fiorentina or Bologna they wouldn't be at that number for a top 6 finish, but I think
you're probably talking about a plus 300, plus 400 number for a top 6.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Sorry, Scotty. What do you think?
I think if we're talking about next season, I think Retegui is going to be the bigger loss. Like you said, Nick, 25 goal scorers don't grow on trees. You can probably count them on one hand, what we can find in Europe. So I think that's a tough one. The other thing about Milan right now, there's so many losses around the club. Yeah. It's gonna be hard to nail down. And weirdly enough, the one that they've done the best job in replacing is probably Reinders, bringing in Modric and Ricci. Yeah. Those two combining can probably cover the midfield in a similar, if not maybe slightly less than way than Reinders. So I think there's going to be other losses going on with Milan that might be felt weirdly a bit more than Reinders in this current season. Long term, it's probably going to be Reinders because Modric is probably here for a season. Then you're going to have to try to find somebody else to kind of come in and handle the box to box. Some creative. I think he was their second leading goal scorer too. We talked about that with Martino behind Pulisic. So it's I think long term he'll be the bigger pain. And Atalanta, can they create? I mean, without Gasperini, can they create this magic of turning subpar attackers into 15, 20 goal scorers? The two guys that they've brought in so far, Samardzic and Suleimana, not exactly guys that are filling up the stat sheet. So, remains to be seen.
Yeah, and Johnny looks like he agrees too, man. Right, player for player, Reinders going to be the guy.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap things up tonight. One last question. I'm going to take one team from each league. Who do we think has the better shot as it stands today at repeating as champions? Is it Napoli or is it Liverpool?
That's tough.
Well, guess what, Nick? You get to go first because Coach went first last time.
Yeah, I think Napoli is more likely to repeat because I think none of the competition is really improved outside of Roma, who finished, they finished fifth, sixth?
Yep.
Fifth.
Okay. I think Inter's gotten worse. Juve has gotten worse. Milan probably sideways. Maybe an improvement. They finished eighth, so they're going to improve, but I don't know if they've improved enough to compete for a title. Fiorentina, Lazio, they're going to be non-factors. So I think it's going to take an awful lot for Napoli to lose the title. Coming up against an Inter team that didn't really gel last year when it mattered. Goal scoring dries up seemingly for months at a time. And you've given Conte pretty much every player he's wanted, right? Mm-hmm. For better or worse. I'm not here to critique his judgment of talent. The guy gets results. So I'd be shocked if Napoli didn't win the league as it stands today. But that being said, Liverpool made a lot of improvements as well. They've spent some money. They're not done spending. So you got to love that. But they know what's ahead of them. They know what they're going to get out of Salah this year. It's not going to be the same. It's just not statistically possible. But he also has AFCON. He's also a year older. A lot of games under his legs. But they've retooled. Wirtz, I say it all the time, man. He has the potential really to be a generational player. He is just exceptionally talented. So I think he's going to fill in well. If Liverpool get goal scoring, and I know they kind of do it by committee, but if they can figure out what they're doing.
They have it, though. That's the thing. Last season, it was all Salah, really. Right. Gakpo did okay, but, Jota was hurt. Diaz had talked about it was wasteful. It really was a lot. No,
if they can make an upgrade over Diaz and Nunez, which I think they can, like one player will replace those two players, in my opinion. If they fill that hole, tough for me to say Liverpool gets unseated as well. We talked about it. Their defense has been outstanding for 2 years now. They're comfortable. They're familiar. They know what their strengths are. They play to them. And they know the teams that they're up against are not invincible. Like this is not the same Man City unless they, you guys know my philosophy. I have to see it before I believe it. So can City be the City of 3 years ago again? Maybe, I guess, but let's see it. We know Haaland's not starting to break down, but it's not realistic for him to start 40 games, in a season anymore. So I think they have some real question marks outside of him, right? Once we talked about it last year, but Alvarez left. That was a really big hole that they just chose not to fill. So let's see what they do.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at. That's what they tried to do in January, right? With Marmouche, I guess, right? So they
was okay, right?
Yeah. And they realized they need to fill that hole maybe.
And guess what? Late. Guess who's leaving for a month as well?
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. I think for the first reason Nick said, I think it is Napoli, just because the competition. I think Liverpool's going to face stiffer competition to repeat as champions. The big thing in Serie A, I think that gets lost because we kind of forget it as we're talking about transfers is the coaching changes, the managerial changes, right? Losing Inzaghi to Saudi Arabia for his big contract, just like we talked about Retegui, is a big loss for Inter. they're also getting older, right? They haven't been super active in the Mercato yet. Their Lookman is supposed to be going there, which will help the attack a bit. But I don't know if they're necessarily better, as a lot of that back line ages and some other players. Çalhanoğlu is still there after he put up a kind of a right. He made a mess of things in the locker room. Nick, he like wanted out, and now he's still there.
They were selling him for like 15 million or something,
Yeah.
and now he's staying. I don't know. I couldn't figure that one out.
So, Juve, I don't think that has done enough to improve yet. We talked about last week, all they did was sign Jonathan David so far. Milan, they were 8th place. They have the 4th shortest odds in the league right now. They, like Nick said, like, are they really better without, Reinders and bringing the guys there? Maybe it's a lateral thing. And Reinders is a huge loss. Second most goals from a midfielder, right? That's a loss. I think Roma improves, just because they've gotten Gasperini and they're starting to get players that fit his mold. Are they good enough to beat Napoli in the Scudetto? I've taken a shot at the plus 1,400, but I don't necessarily believe they're going to win the Scudetto this year. I'm waiting for those top 4 lines to come out, because if it's a decent enough plus number, I'm going to suggest playing that, based on what I just said about these other 3 clubs. But then you go past that, right? And who's truly competing with Napoli? I mean, they brought in some good players, right? De Bruyne, we'll see what he has left in the tank. We talked about that last week. But Lorenzo Luca is a player that I think is pretty good, growing striker. Yep. I think he can certainly provide more goals here than he did in Udinese. He'll have more help around him. They brought in Bukema from Bologna, who was a good center back there, the Dutch player. Noah Lang, the left back, brought in from PSV. So, like, they're bringing in players that Conte wants. Yep. And I think they've improved a lot. Now, like Nick said, Liverpool spent a hell of a lot of money. First team to spend 300 million euros so far this season, and it's on good players. But I think the difference is the competition, right? Arsenal, we just talked about, has improved. Right, they've got the striker they were lacking. They've got another midfielder to help and play the 6 next to Rice, so that's going to make them better. Reinders should help City in some ways. They're going to get Rodri back healthy, right? He was probably their biggest loss last year when he got hurt. So he comes back, if he's 95% of what he was, that makes kind of their whole mechanism work for Pep. So I just think, not because Liverpool's any worse, they probably could be better this year with the players they brought in. I just think it's the competition that Napoli has to go up against. Now, Napoli does have to play European football, which they didn't have to do last year.
Yep.
That'll wear on them a bit. I think that is the one thing going against Conte. We know he is really good when he has 6 days to plan for a match. No interruptions midweek, right? He's not going to have that this year. So we'll see how much that weighs on Napoli. But they have reinforced without really losing much, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, Coach, you just brought up my big point, is Napoli now have to battle on 2 fronts again. And I feel like the depth is probably going to be their weak spot this year. Can they keep all these guys healthy through a 50 plus match season? So that'll be interesting. Liverpool, I should actually lead off with this. I'm surprised nobody brought it up. Both teams are around plus 190 to plus 200 to win right now. So they're both
parlay action.
They're both virtually like the same in terms of odds. I was going to try to use that as a deciding point, but it can't. It's a wash. Liverpool.
So we're looking at about a plus 700 if we parlayed them, plus 800,
right,
something like that.
Yeah.
Coach is going to
lock it in
as you're
talking.
Yeah. Liverpool, in terms of their likelihood to repeat,
907 on DraftKings.
it's not terrible.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad. But maybe not as good as when because I have to do my classic thing. I got to talk down Liverpool's chances. Yeah. I mean, yes, listen, they have had a great window so far, completely overhauled their fullbacks. Their forward line is in progress. I think they're probably still 2 signings away from finishing out their window, depending on the quality of those 2 signings. I think believe it or not, there's a wide array of quality, right? Like, I think Isak is still very much weirdly in play. It hasn't been completely shut down yet. So that is, even if it's a 10% chance, a chance. Elsewise, Rodrigo coming in and replacing Luis Diaz, I think, is a lot more attractive than a Malik Fofana out of Ligue 1. So
that would be incredible. Depending
on which way that goes, the depth will be, either decent for Liverpool in terms of attacking, or it could be a little thin. But yeah, then City, their window has been okay, right? Like, brought in Reinders, talked about that. Brought in Cherokee, who I think some are super high on. I'm a little dubious on, because it's, his stats in France were okay. Nothing to write home about. I know he's a flashy player. He looks great, but, so did Grealish, right? So he has potential to maybe be a little flat. And I don't think he's going to start, right? Like, where is he? Who's he kicking out? Is he kicking out Marmouche? Is he going to play out on the left wing? I don't know. So I think City, they could bounce back and be a classic Pep side, but, they have to prove it right now. I think the defense is still a little shaky. They brought in Ait Nouri, who's more of an attacking fullback than a defensive fullback. So I think they're still exposed, and their keeper situation is in flux, right? Like, could be Ederson leaving. They could be bringing in James Trafford from Burnley. Not exactly a place you want to be, whereas Liverpool, I think you could make a case to have two number one keepers in Alisson and Mamadashvili. So, you're not going to get me to talk Arsenal into winning the title this year. I know we just talked about their squad being fully complete, but I just, until you have that DNA, I don't think it's necessarily a big threat to Liverpool at this point in time. So I don't know. That's kind of where I stand. I think Napoli, I'm more concerned about their depth in battling in two full competitions this year. The new league setup for Champions League is also incorporating 2 more games in that first half of the season. I've been on record talking about how seasons with Conte as your manager can go down the drain really fast. Like 1 month is all it takes for that thing to kind of flip on its head. So I've tried to
Coach, can you pull up their schedule for like January? I'm just curious.
When Conte is his angriest.
Yeah. Like Anguissa is going to be at AFCON. That's a big piece for them.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess against my own will, I kind of have to say Liverpool on this one. I wanted to try to talk myself into Napoli, but I can't. I think they're gonna.
Right, so if we're looking at January, which is when AFCON usually is, you're looking at January 3rd, Lazio Napoli.
Easy win.
Home for Verona.
Easy.
Away to Inter.
Ooh.
Home for Sassuolo. Away to Juve on the 25th, and then February 1st is home for Fiorentina. So yeah, not the
easiest
stretch. Yeah.
Okay, but manageable.
Yeah.
Perfect time for Roma to leapfrog them.
So here's my question to you guys, because obviously I missed last week, and I followed along, but you posed some great questions here. I have what's a better long shot in your opinion? Because I like both of these teams at the numbers they currently sit at, which is roughly the same. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but Roma at plus 1,400 or Chelsea at plus 1,400? Because I've seen both of them at that number.
I would go Roma right now.
In to win a league, I would say Roma, and not because I'm a Roma fan, but just because, like,
hey, listen, I was probably the first person to place it, so you don't have to convince me on Roma.
Yeah, basically with the same answer as the previous question, it's the competition, right? For Chelsea to win the league, they're gonna have to beat Liverpool, who's improved and they're defending champs. Yeah. And Arsenal side, who has improved, and then City, who's still City and getting
I just
Milan and
man
back.
I think it's going to be, and we saw it last year. It's been, I don't want to say not talked about enough, because that's bullshit. It obviously is, but I don't think I say it out loud enough. Like, Premier League is going to be fascinating this year. Yeah. These teams are going to beat up on each other like crazy in the top 5. And I just think,
if United's not a dead dog this season, I think it becomes really interesting, because, Brighton seems like they're going to probably be a little bit stronger than they were last year. I think Aston Villa has some staying power as long as they don't sell Watkins. And yeah, I think the top 5 right now, including Newcastle, I think they all should be able to be improved or hold pat. Newcastle, I think, is the only one of these top 5 teams that might have a bit of a drop off.
I think there's a very clear top 5 and a very, very good secondary 5 that, like, there's not going to be an easy game. So you better go out and get your 3 points against Fulham, and get your 3 points against Wolves, and get your 3 points against who just came up. Leeds. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there is no dropping points in those games, like, or you are fucking cooked. So I think the first team that blinks a little bit over there, we're going to see how they can manage it, because Champions League, we saw it took a toll on the English teams this year. Could happen again. Chelsea's got to be like I said, obviously finish the season really, really strong. They have a ton of squad depth. Obviously, they're going to have to make some sales, but you just won 2 tournaments. You can make what you want of the second tournament, but teams came here and took it seriously. So for me, I don't, like, prestige aside, they came and they beat a lot of very good teams, and they handled PSG's first loss in how long?
Killed me in the final. I had PSG money line. I thought that was a no doubter.
I'm not saying that's going to translate to them beating Liverpool and City in back-to-back weeks or anything like that, but like you have to take Chelsea seriously, especially if Palmer rebounds in any way, shape, or form.
I would say that the only team that Chelsea beat that is a legitimate team in the Club World Cup was PSG. I mean, leading up to it, Fluminense, Palmeiras, Benfica.
Yeah, but those teams played well.
Played well for what you expected from them. Those aren't top 10 teams, and they're not finishing in the top half of the table in England. They're not top half of the table clubs. None of those teams finish in the top 10 in Premier League.
Probably
I don't even know that they finish in the top 10 in Serie A. It's debatable.
Probably not, but these are teams that came here and conceded 0
They're all teams that Chelsea should be beating.
Oh, no doubt. I'm not going to. Hey, listen.
But Chelsea, you know what the nice thing is, guys? Because I was looking at the lines in the other leagues last week as Scott and I were talking about futures. Like, these are the only 2 leagues where it's competitive from, like, at least 1 through 4, 1 through 5. Like, the other 3 big leagues in Europe, PSG and Bayern, they're, like, minus, like, 500,000 to win the league. And then, like, La Liga is a 2-team race, according to the book.
And is it? I mean, it's, again, I better see Real Madrid rebound, or it's not even a 2-team league.
Yeah. Dude, if Vinny goes to Saudi for 300 million,
if Vinny stays, who cares? Like, I don't know. This is the number 1 Vinny hating podcast in sports, so you don't have to. But no, Steve, you're 100%. I mean, people should be going and watching like the Dutch league after these 2 leagues. Yeah. Like that's where I'm at on it. There's nothing else to watch.
Yeah, my only gripe with the books is I look through the futures lines, like the Premier League, we can talk about top 2 finish, top 4 finish, top 5, top 6, top 10 finish, bottom 10. Like, there's so many futures markets you can toy around with. Like, forget who you had on, Nick, when I was home with the baby, and like I wasn't on toward the end, but the one guy you had on, he was talking about like some of the futures he put in.
Oh, Nate.
Yes. Like all these other futures he had, and I was like, wow, like
to finish top half,
like
to
we didn't
finish
think about any
these
of these
points.
things. Like, you know, like there's so many angles you could play where if you find like that sleeper team that's going to make that jump, like Brighton did that one year or Villa did that one year, you can find value in a top 10 finish. You know, like it's.
I forgot what I forgot the number he got, but it was like plus 1,000 for United to finish bottom half or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was something ridiculous. So
like if you could pick out this year's team that's going to do what they did, like you can find value.
We could do it because I could talk myself into 7 or 8 teams finishing top 8.
Yeah,
I can easily see who's going to fall outside. So we'll plan for that in a week or so.
True. All right. Any closing thoughts for the pod tonight, boys, before we close out?
No, I don't think so. Like you said, bring on the spending. Let's see what happens next week. I mean, I'm happy we had enough to talk about from week to week. It hasn't been a slow transfer window. Like it's been slow, but like big names have been moving, so it's been fun.
Yeah. My only closing thought, I think the anomaly of the Premier League the last 2 seasons where the promoted teams got immediately sent back down, I think that's starting to show now in terms of teams that have been able to string together multiple seasons in the Premier League with the astronomical revenues that they have, being able to consolidate. And I think that's why we're going to see a very competitive Premier League this season. I think there's a lot of teams that have made a lot of money that have now been able to go out to these bottom tier French or German sides and have been able to kind of pick, 1 or 2 players that are able to improve their squad. Whereas seasons past, maybe they're going to championship. So we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I think that's it for tonight. We'll be back next week. We'll probably have some more to talk about. There'll be some more preseason games that we'll probably just, like I said, overanalyze, dissect unnecessarily, but it's soccer. We're a couple weeks out.
Yeah, and hey, want to shout out Martino, who came on a couple weeks ago. Anybody who's in the chat, anybody that's watching this or will watch it later, if you have any club expertise, want to come on, talk about your club, we'll make some time the next couple of weeks. So just hit us up.
All right. Till next week. See you guys later.